Brian Eho here, and the one and only Bert Lehman, bringing you episode 162 of the One to Go Show. Thanks for joining us here today, Bert. How you doing, man? Speed Week's underway. How was your week?
My week has been all right. There's been it's kind of been a downer in eastern Wisconsin on the racing side. We had two former Sportsman limited late model drivers who raced at Toronto Speedway in the 90s. They passed away within days of each other. Both of them are only 57, so I mean, way too young. Kevin Tober was one of them. He was a 4-time track champion in the Sportsman / limited late model division at Toronto Speedway, and he is in the Toronto Speedway Hall of Fame also. And then John Gutho passed away a couple of days later. He raced in the Sportsman division in the early 90s, and he had cancer. He battled cancer for probably about a year, and lost that battle just recently. So, condolences to both of the families, for both those drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's young. I mean, 57 years old. That is crazy young. We're getting a little too close to that age, Bert. It's a little too close to home. But hug your loved ones a little closer. I mean, we're not promised tomorrow. So enjoy today. Enjoy every moment you can with the people you care about, doing the things you love to do, and that right there is a testament. A couple race car drivers gone, part of the big racing family. Thoughts and prayers to everyone over there. I had a little field trip here this week. Speaking of doing things you like, I actually trucking all over the place. I'm in my truck right now, headed out to New York. Everybody tells me, "Oh, you don't want to go there. You want to stay away from New York." Maybe I got lucky. I'm not sure. Didn't hit any traffic. Hit it at the right time. Got to see the Statue of Liberty. Got to go to Ground Zero and see the memorial at Ground Zero. So that was cool. So no racing to go to up here, but maybe in the weeks to come, we'll see. But no racing for me to go to. But I got to see some pretty cool things. But this episode, Bert, of course, brought to you by our friends over at Dirt Track Supply, Ron and Trevor and the gang over in Watertown, South Dakota. Your go-to for all things racing. Saw Trevor put a post up there, bodies by Ron Anderson and crew. Of course, they do great tin work, great fab work all around. They can build anything, they can fix anything. And of course, they build the Aero chassis, which, I mean, that car's won a lot of races in a lot of different classes over the years. And if you need parts, tires, safety equipment, you name it, get a hold of Trevor and Ron over at Dirt Track Supply in Watertown for anything you need. So on this episode here, Bert, we're gonna a little preface here. Early thought, Casa Grande down in Arizona, 7 nights of racing. Don Shaw, a bang-up job down there. We're going to take a deep dive into that. A success in more ways than one for Don Shaw and the gang. We'll talk a little bit more about that, little teaser, so to speak. Longhorn chassis, not Longhorn Bilstein, but Longhorn continues to dominate. Speed weeks are in full force. We'll take a deep dive into what's going down in Florida, Georgia. And a complimentary, I'll call it a complimentary late model series, the XR Super Series. Some big shows last year, some changes. We're kind of getting used to that with them, but a few changes to their schedule that look like it's pretty good. And we're going to talk about our picks for the week and our bold, well, maybe not real bold predictions. But first, let's take a deep dive. Let's jump into a blast to the past, brought to you by Impact Health Sharing. So fans, if you're a business owner, right? If you work for somebody, but you got to pay for your own healthcare, even if they're paying a portion, we might be able to beat it. If you have employees and you're getting killed on healthcare, shoot me a text, 218-969-1380, and I can get you a quick, no obligation quote, get you some information. Been able to save people a lot of money. I'm talking thousands of dollars for some businesses. So it's been a really good deal. You can go to any doctor and give me a call, give me a text. I'd be glad to help you out. But Bert, 162. First of all, any 162s for you?
Unfortunately, I don't have a 162 or a 62, so
that's all right. I got a couple for you there, Bert. I'll take good care of you. Hold on 1 second here. Turn the heat on in this thing, and I don't need it quite so toasty in here. So, number 62. So, if you're from the Twin Ports area, right? If you're up from Superior, Wisconsin, and you were a race fan back in the 70s, specifically the 80s, everybody remembers the legend of Dwayne Ulu Erickson. I think he ran Super Sox, but I know he ran late models for sure. Got some pictures here to post up. Mason Aaron Videos, give him a shout out there for doing all of our editing, but he can post the pictures here. Got a few pretty cool ones. I heard a lot of stories about this guy, Bird. I mean, I feel like everybody partied a hell of a lot harder back in the day, right? Because, nowadays you don't do that because, and not that drinking and driving is a good thing. It's not. You don't want to do that, right? That's just is what it is. But 1 beer, 2 beers, commercial vehicles, hauling race cars, and they tend to frown on it a whole lot more today than the stories I remember my dad. My dad used to say, man, we were drinking and driving, and the cop would take our beer from us and give us a ride home and say, get your ass to bed, or I'm going to tell your dad. That's just what it was. That's not the case anymore. But I heard some pretty cool stories. If anybody has a favorite Ulu story, post it in the comments, share it with me. I'd love to talk about it. A guy that I didn't really know, but I heard a little bit about. So Dwayne Ulu Erickson. Got a couple of pictures here from my buddy Lauren. He sometimes he sends them, and it's like after we already did the show, it's like crap. But he got these ones to me beforehand, and the Lillo family. So you've heard of the Lillo family. There's a bunch of them that race late models and several classes, but they're primarily in Proctor, Superior, Wisconsin. So I got a picture here from Lauren, and this number 62 was Tim Lillo and JP Ozzie. It was JP Ozzie's rookie season, kind of in-laws there, so to speak. But they ran this car together. Now, another 62 I have from a pure stock from around 2000, not sure on the year, Melissa Lillo. Now, the significance, Bert, of the Lillo family is there's 4 generations of Lillos that have raced. There's not a lot of that. That's super cool. That's a legacy, right? So this family is huge for racing. It started with Milo Lillo, a guy that I don't know much about. Milo Lillo, though, is a Hall of Famer up at the Hibbing Raceway in Hibbing, Minnesota. Now, his sons, Tim and Terry Lillo, they still race. They run late models. Terry Lillo, he's won track championships. Tim Lillo, he was just a super nice guy, not quite as successful behind the wheel as Terry. And then their kids, right? You got their kids. Melissa Lillo, she ran a pure stock, no longer racing. And then Aaron and Chris Lillo, both running in the late models. Aaron's 15-year-old son, Eric Lillo, he's racing a late model. And then Chris's kids, Eva and Lucas, 13 and 16 years old, respectively, are both in the Hornet division. So a huge legacy there for the Lillo family. And just a shout out to that family. They've done a lot for the sport. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, the late model class would look awfully bleak in Proctor on Sunday nights, if not for the Lillos, because there's a whole bunch of them. Now, save the best for last, right? See the Halverlines logo here? This guy bleeds Halverlinesburg. Bleeds Halverlines. He's been there since the company started. Our very own Crash Carlson. You've heard me talk about Crash before, haven't you? You're supposed to nod. Even if you're not sure, you're supposed to go, yes, yeah, I did. So Crash, 83 years young, okay? He's still working at Halver and after hours. He's the guy that answers the phones there when there's problems. Thick skin, I don't know how he does it. Maybe that's a lesson for us all, Bert, on how to live longer is to literally don't sweat the small stuff, right? When things go on, it's like, it is what it is. Let's just move on. So Crash raced back in the day. I don't remember him racing, but he did. He was at this. I got a picture of this number 62, and Crash, he's still involved with the Gondik Speedway in Superior. He was a promoter for many years over at the Proctor Speedway, Halverline Speedway in Proctor. Obviously, he might have had a little something to do with that sponsorship coming to the Halverline Speedway. I'm just saying. Also, him and his wife, Shirley, So in Shawano, Bert, did they always have a souvenir stand that sold flags and T-shirts and hats? Did they have that over the years?
They still have it.
Okay, that was Arnold Shirtworks for a long time up in the northern part of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. And she still goes to the office every day. She builds trophies. They build trophies together, do all kinds of apparel. But I've known Crash since I was really little, and he's one of my best buddies. I talk to Crash, I mean, most days when I'm driving down the road. I may have Bert. I'm surprised he still talks to me, because when he was president at Proctor, I may have told him I was going to burn his house down. Didn't actually do it, but I may have had a moment or two, and he still likes me, so that's a good thing. So we're all better for having Crash Carlson in the racing community. So some nostalgia there with the number 62s, and fans, 63 next week. So if you have a favorite 63 or 163, send it our way. Send us a story. Send us some info. We'd love to hear some of them stories. I'd like to have a little blast to the past. Have a hell of a lot of fun, Bert, doing that every week. So,
all right, before we move on, you were talking about partying and partying in the past and stuff. I forgot. I was going to relay the story when I was talking about Kevin Tober, but I forgot. One of my, obviously he was a really good race car driver, so I have a lot of memories about him, winning championships and that sort of thing. I knew him a little bit when he was racing, and one time he was really good friends with MJ McBride, so that's kind of how I got to know him. And MJ would always race in the year-end special at Marshfield, and one year towards the end, one time Kevin Tober took his sportsman car and raced with the late models at Marshfield, and then Kevin did race regular late models for a little bit before he stopped racing, and he went to Marshfield, I believe, a couple of times then. But one memory, obviously we went to the bars in Marshfield then after the races were over, and we were at a bar. I want to say it was called the Country Bumpkin. I'm not positive on that, but I want to say that was the name of the bar. And somebody from his pit crew put somebody on their shoulders, and they were walking around the bar. So then Kevin Tober came up to me and he goes, "Here, get on my shoulders." So I'm up on his shoulders and he's walking around the bar. So that's one of my after racing stories that I have about Kevin. And
that's
then
one of the stories we can share.
Well, yeah, that's true. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. I mean, Kevin was a really good racer, and he liked to have fun too. So
that's all part of it. We're missing that culture, Bert. We really are. That's the one main difference. I get it. We got technology and phones and streaming and all that, but the culture's different. And a testament to that was a party that the Kittner crew and Palmer's Tavern put on over at the Hibbing Raceway the last 2 years. The best crowd they've had, right? I mean, people stick around after the races. Got to have that. I'm not saying you got to get drunk every night, but just that camaraderie of being after the races, that, I guess, meeting after the meeting, so to speak. But when races get done at midnight, 1 a.m, because you have 19 classes of cars, that don't really work. So just a food for thought right there. So, Bert, let's take a trip back down to the desert. They had the final 3 nights of the Ernie Mincy Early Thaw at the Casa Grande Speedway, or I guess it would be the Central Arizona Speedway in Casa Grande, Arizona. Don Shaw, who is the owner of the I-94 Speedway in Fergus Falls, Shaw Trucking, done a lot for racing. He put this event on, brought down a staff, brought down some people from up north, announcers and track prep crew, all kinds of people, and obviously some people from down there as well. And quite honestly, did a bang up job. I mean, they had, in my opinion, this could maybe turn into the new Wild West Shootout, because when I think the Wild West Shootout, I don't think all the big late model names. I really don't. For me personally, I think all of us northern cars, all of the northern cars going down there and watching the Midwest mods, the mods, late models, and that's what they had this time. And it sounds like there's going to be a lot more people going down there next year. So really looking forward to that. But a little bit of a look here, right? Before we get into that, let's a little shout out here to Brad Parson, right? So Brad Parson, he has anything you need, for chemicals for ag. I mean, he's got a lot of different stuff. I mentioned Agzyme, but there's a ton of different products he has out there. If you're in a farmer, if you're farming, right, in Western Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, give him a call, hit him up on Messenger, right? Text him, get some products, try them out for yourself. He's done extensive testing. The numbers are way up. I mean, he's got all the data. It's not like he's just selling something, doesn't know anything about it. He has the data. And he's like, I don't understand why more people aren't using these products, because it's going to help you be more profitable. We all know the right chemicals, mixed in the right way with the right things can yield really good results. Well, he's got the right chemicals for farming. So start 2023 off right, get a hold of Brad Parson. But little recap, Bert, I know you didn't watch any of that down there because it was on
I didn't watch any of it, but I know last week we talked about Ricky Weiss being down there. Was he still down there this past week?
He was. In fact, he won. I don't know what the heck happened to him on the final night. I'll have to take a look. I don't know if he broke or what. I missed that feature. I'm looking at the results here, and it's not in the top 5. So to me, I should have probably figured out why he wasn't in the top 5. But he won 2 of the last 3. He won, I guess, 4 features down there. Yeah. So he was down there. Kind of surprised. Are you surprised that he was there and not Florida?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little surprising, but as I stated last week, I mean, I don't know what his reason was, but maybe he just wants to get more laps on his car in a not so competitive environment, and do kind of treat it as more testing and see what works and what doesn't work.
Well, that, and it costs a hell of a lot less to race in Arizona than it does to race in Florida. So there is that, right? Just on the tire deal all by itself, and I know, I don't know his total sponsor situation. I know he's got some good ones. But the fact is, a lot of that money comes out of his own pocket. You only got so much money to play with. Maybe not a bad move staying there, parking in Victory Lane. And there's plenty of drivers that are regional drivers that look at his stuff that maybe he'll jump into a sniper because of his success down there. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know if he's going to head to Speed Weeks. Was he? I don't think he was at all of Speed Weeks last year, was he? I think he missed most.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I wonder if maybe we'll see him at Volusia. Maybe I don't think we'll see him at East Bay, but I would not be surprised maybe to see him that final 3 nights at Volusia. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But so they switched it up a little bit. I'm gonna start with the IMCA stock cars, Bert. So one of my hot picks, I guess we'll get to that in a little bit, was Ryan Satter winning. Well, Ryan Satter had 2 seconds and a third in the final 3. Come on, man. Come on. Help a brother out, right? You literally chumped me right there. I think he wanted to win, but that shitbox of his, Bert, it did not turn. It was like a road grader out there. He had to wheel that thing to make it go. Got to make it turn a little bit better, and I guarantee he'd transition those seconds and thirds in the first. And a couple of guys that stuck out to me. I'm not real familiar with the IMCA stock cars, but they're northern drivers, right? Jordan Zilmer. He's actually from Cleveland, North Dakota, 4 top 5s, and he won 2 of the last 3 nights. So us northern drivers, whether it's Minnesota, North Dakota, representing well down in the desert. And then Trent Greger, 71. Obviously, he's fast because it's number 71. It just is what it is. But Sykeston, North Dakota, and he had 7 top 4s. Bert, he was good all week. 2 wins for the 71. So the northern drivers representing very well down in the desert. And then this week, so last week, remember they had the IMCA mods were meshed together with the, so they didn't do that this week. They still had limited mods, but IMCA mods had their own class and they came out in droves. So it worked. It did. It worked. So Don Shaw's vision was, let's just kind of mesh them together, make one class. We don't need 17 classes. Well, most of the IMCA mod guys down there did not show up for them first 4 nights. I'm not sure if that's why, if there was other reasons, but they had a ton of them for the final 3 nights. So once they had their own class, more of them came out. Maybe they're just not, they're not really open to the idea yet, but maybe, I guess we'll have to talk to Don and see if that's on the plans for next year to separate them out or mesh them together again. And the fact is, in the IMCA mods, Chaz Baca, okay, not Chaz that you see on Facebook, not that guy, okay, not that guy. Chaz Baca got a pair of wins down there, and Tim Ward, Stabrowski, the first night, I guess it would have been what they run Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He runs second, Bert, 7 pounds, I believe, light at the scale. So, boy, he's fast, and he won one down there, which wrecked another one of my picks. Thanks, Shane. Appreciate it, Shane. I'm sure he wanted to win, but he kind of cost me there a little bit. But I was surprised. I really honestly thought Sabrowski would win more races. And Colin Hibden in 2 different cars had a pair of seconds down there. And then Northern driver Sean Strand, he was down there in the IMCA mod, and he finished 4th and 3rd. I don't know what happened to him on the 3rd night down there, but he had a couple good runs as well. So the IMCA mods representing, and then Bert, let's jump into the limited mods. Okay, now this class here, Bert, is essentially, it's a Wissota Midwest mods. I mean, if you look at the results, there was a couple X mods in there, whatever. But I mean, it was flat out dominated and owned by the Wissota Midwest modified class. And, this past weekend, Lane Johnson, do you remember Lauren Johnson from South Dakota, the Dirt Doctor, they called him? Former national champion in,
yes.
I think, yep. I believe that's his kid, Lane. He has a couple. And Lane parked it in Victory Lane. I don't think he won a feature all last year. So a big win for him. And then Lucas Rodin got another win. And Jake Smith, who struggled at Votto, he was not good there, but he had a really good week over in the desert. Your reigning Wissota Midwest Modified National Champion, finding pay dirt, getting in Victory Lane. And then who stuck out to me? Jake Smith, Bert, he had 5 top 5s, a win, and 4 podiums. That's a solid week down there. So great job to him. And the Nightmare, Lucas Rodin, 6 podiums, a DNF in there that kind of wrecked it, and 2 wins for him. So I tell you, he got a win over in Votto as well. So I believe that's 3 wins on the year. And last year he started out with 1. Let's see if maybe he can get back on national championship pace, so to speak. Now, let's jump into that was the limited mods. Let's jump into the late models, Bert. This is your class. Okay, this is your class right here. We had 3 nights. What stuck out to me is Dave Moss was back in action. So Moss, who cut his thumb off, a good chunk of his thumb, and they kind of did more damage at surgery. He went down there, didn't race the first week, and he went back out, and he literally got behind the wheel, Bert, and he was automatically fast. He had second locked up on it would have been Thursday night down there, DNF. I'm not sure what broke, but it was definitely enough that where that car didn't come out the rest of the week. He didn't run the next night, and then he ran Don Shaw's car, the 42 car, on, I guess, the final night down there, and he got 3rd. So Dave Moss back behind the wheel. And Victory Lane, like I said, Ricky Weiss got a pair of wins. But Oregon, Bert, late models in the state of Oregon. Who thunk it, right? They got 2 wins down there. Rob Mayo won the finale from Bend, Oregon. And then Bryson James, he got a win, another Oregon driver. So, and he's in a 525. So they kind of did the Dirt Kings deal where they meshed them all together and they kind of made the rules work. There was open motors with restrictors. That's what Ricky had. But the guy that I would say what stuck out to me by far the most out of the whole week, I guess week and a half down in the desert, is young Josh Zimpel. This driver, Bert, second year driver in a late model. Didn't have he had a few wins in a super, not a pile of them. Not a guy that won a ton. Of course, he raced against Sabrowski most nights. You probably ain't gonna have many, right? That just is what it is. But Bert, listen to this. He got a fourth, then he got a 13th. He had a rough one in there. A 5th, a 3rd, and a 4th. Okay. In those 7 nights of racing, if you look at where he started to where he finished, he was plus 55. 55. Like literally, he started 24th and he got 4th on night number 1. Unbelievable. I mean, keep an eye on this kid. And with Ogilvy, they're bringing on the late models here this year. I think Granite's got a show, maybe 2. Fergus Falls. Josh Zimpel was really impressive down there, Bert. And I have a feeling that you're gonna hear a little bit more about this kid this year. I think he's gonna be a guy getting into victory lane. 525. This was a big test. Don Shaw, big proponent, Bert, of the 525 crate. And we're at the WISSOTA annual meetings, right? And it's a dumpster fire. Bert, have you ever been to the WISSOTA annual meetings?
No.
You need to go. You'll never get them 2.5 days of your life back, but you probably should go. Let's face it, everybody's got a different opinion on what needs to be done, right? And if you got 50 tracks and 30 promoters there and a topic comes up, you can only imagine that you got 30 people bickering back and forth and nothing gets accomplished. Well, Don Shaw has been a huge proponent of this 525. Okay. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm for it or against it. There's pros, there's cons, but he just proved that you can set up a class with a 525 crate, run against flat out open motors, and compete at a high level if you tweak the rules enough to do so. Huge win for Don Shaw. You got a little one that if you're gonna pick up a dog in the middle of the show, show us your puppy.
What? Revy, come here.
Killing me.
Our mascot.
There we go. See, at worst case scenario, I mean, let's face it, nobody wants to look at our mugs. All right. It just is what it is. That dog's a hell of a lot cuter than the two of us. That's what they want to see. So Bert's got his little mascot. We know who's in charge in that house there. Another
right now, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So Jason Strand, Bert, 4 top 5s, had a really good week. Really looked good in that E85. Gave one away. He had a lead, dumped right off the back straightaway. Not a good deal, but he was fun to watch down there. I think he is a guy that maybe could possibly make some noise jumping into 2023 in WISSOTA land. So that's it on this. I guess in closing down there, Bert, you know, the people have been begging for racing to be back in Arizona because the Wild West shootout moved back to Vado, and nothing against Vado, but the location is not optimal for a vacation type deal, right? The racing was unbelievable this year. The late model features for sure at Vado, awesome, right? So they aren't moving it. It just ain't going to happen. And quite honestly, our WISSOTA late models aren't going to go down and run with the open cars and compete. Well, this is a show now where the WISSOTA late models, Dirt Kings, Tri-State late, all of them, they can go down and race in the winter, break up the winter a little bit. The Midwest mods, they call them limited mods because they kind of opened it up to other classes to be able to join. Great event down there. And Don Shaw, not only did he put this event together, funded a bunch of it, you know, but he had community cars, right, Don? He had Kenny Schrader in his car. He had Billy Moyer in his car. He had Dave Moss in a car. He literally took his engine out of his car because Dustin Bloom wrecked an engine. And he says, I don't need to race. I'll just, whatever, just take my engine and use it. So they did that, right? So get a little hard on the guy a little bit, you know, a couple weeks back about the whole tire deal. Let's face it, the guy does a lot for the sport and a lot for a lot of drivers. And we ain't always going to agree on everything, but we can agree on one thing, that Shaw Trucking, Don Shaw, and everybody involved there, they do a lot for racing. So tip of the cap to Don Shaw. So Bert, I know you watch these ones. Now let's go to the Florida Georgia Speedway down in the Southeast, right? And before we get to that, buyraceshirts.com. That time of year, folks, if you need apparel, you need hats, you need hoodies, you need t-shirts, anything apparel-wise for racing, go to buyraceshirts.com. For racers, by racers, many different packages. You can buy low quantities, high quantities. He's got different ways to kind of to finance things. He's got some different options there. Get a hold of Jordan. He does great work. And this is the time of year to start looking ahead. Have your apparel ready for the beginning of the season. So, Bert, 3 nights of racing over at the Golden Isle Speedway, Brunswick, Georgia. 2 nights of racing at Bubba Raceway Park in Ocala, Florida. Let's go ahead and start with Golden Isles. Let's start there. Do you have the finishes in front of you? You want to give a little recap?
I do not have the finishes in front of me.
Okay, I'll quickly go over that, and then I'll let you kind of touch on a few things that you stuck out. So night number 1, big sexy Brandon Overton back in action. That was his first night out. He didn't run beginning of the year. Parked in Victory Lane. Tim McCready +8 to second. RTJ third. Moran fourth. And Dalton Wilson rounded out the top 5. Night number 2, we'll talk more about this one, I promise. Young Money, Kyle Larson, and Donnybrook at the end of that one. Second was RTJ, third was Overton, and they had a hell of a race right at the end there. Really, really exciting to watch. Earl Pearson Jr. and Huddy rounded out the top 5. Night number 3, last corner, last lap pass, big sexy Brandon Overton drove around RTJ to get her done. And Tanner English third, Brandon Shepard, who he's struggling with this change a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about that. He got 4th. Hudson O'Neill did get 5th, so he did beat, right? He did beat that third night there, the old Rocket 1 car. So those 3 nights over in Golden Isles, Bert, what stuck out to you?
Well, the first, I believe this was the first night. I mean, what stuck out to me the first night was Boom Briggs and Max Blair destroying. Well, I don't know if they destroyed them, but they heavily damaged 2 race cars. I'm assuming Boom owns the cars that Blair races. So that was a very expensive night for Boom Briggs. And I know we've talked about this too, when racers get interviewed right after an incident happens, they say what they think happened, but then when they go back and watch the video, it's like, oh, okay, that's not exactly what happened, because Blair thought that, he said that Boom got dumped, and there was no contact at all between Boom and Bronson. I did watch the interview with Boom Briggs after the race, and he said that he didn't expect Bronson to come down into that lane because Bronson normally likes the high side. Right. So when he came down, Boom hit the brakes, and then that kind of spun him around, and then Blair came, and yeah, it was just a mess then.
Right. Yeah, that was an ugly one. And night number 2, I think it was night 2, when RTJ kind of threw that slider on Dalton Wilson in the heat race, right? And Wilson ended up upside down, and RTJ's like, man, I hope I didn't do that. And he's like, well, you might have taken the air off him. And he's like, well, I didn't hit him, but I still maybe caused it. He had some remorse, but it totally was not RTJ's fault.
That was Logan Robertson, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Yep, my bad.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a nasty roll.
that was, but he didn't cause that.
No,
when it's tight quarters, elbows up racing, and there was no contact even. And then, so night number 2, Bert, I got to ask you this. So great finish. It was a couple great races, really, at Golden Isles. So Kyle Larson. So in case you live under a rock and you haven't seen this, and I know there's some people that they just probably haven't watched it yet. Kyle Larson wins the feature. Okay. He goes across the scales. They scale him. He leaves Tech and drives out onto the track. Now, I have no idea if they said, hey, go to Victory Lane and come back. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not even going to speculate. But he did leave Tech. He went out on the track, and he drives down the straightaway, and he looked like he was going to try to do a 360 or whatever, and well, he did, and he piles it into the fence. Folds the right front down. Didn't destroy stuff, but it enough to kind of wreck a fender, nose a little bit, probably a bumper, right? Drove it into the wall. that's a donkey award. I got to be honest. I mean, you go from like literally, I mean, doing cool guy shit, winning a feature down there in grand fashion, holding off two of the best in the business, to dumping it into the fence on a post-race celebration.
Well, the thing is, I mean, of any of the drivers there who shouldn't mess up a post-race celebration, it should be Kyle Larson because of his NASCAR experience. Because
and he wins all the time.
Right, exactly. And
yeah,
because they always do that after a NASCAR race.
He said that's got to be the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened, right? So I'm gonna ask you. You're a crew guy, right? But going back, what is there anything that sticks out and you're like, that was embarrassing? Is there anything that sticks out that you did that you're like, that was not good?
That I did personally? Nothing sticks out.
Nothing sticks out.
Well,
nothing.
I didn't do any real technical things. I scraped mud and got the helmet ready.
Did you ever screw up the tear-offs?
I don't know if I necessarily screwed them up, but there were a couple of times when he went to tear one off and like all of them came off. And so I don't know if that was my fault or whose fault that was.
He never really said nothing, so probably not your
Well,
fault.
no, I mean, MJ would come up to me if something like that would happen. He'd come up to me after the race and he would just ask me, how many tear-offs did you put on the helmet? And then, I put the normal on, and so. But yeah, I mean, MJ never really, he never threw anybody under the bus. Usually, if they, I mean, I know there were at least one instance, if not more, where the crew members who changed the gears, they put the gears in backwards.
Oh.
And
they flipped them upside down. I remember Harry Hansen did that one night. That ain't good. Provincino actually one night they forgot to put the gears in. They went to go for the heat, they weren't even in. So that was not a good deal. I had a moment. So speaking of gears, our very own Jeff, our late model expert, I did throw people under the bus, not really proud of it, right? But I was way fly off the handle guy. And he may or may not have forgotten to tighten the drain plug on the gears at the Northern Nationals. And I had I think it was a heat race, but I was gone. I had it won, and all of a sudden, and you could just feel something going on. And yeah, she chunked out a set of gears at the Northern Nationals, and yeah, I think I made him buy me McDonald's or something. He can comment on that, maybe in the group text or whatever. But I had a moment at Cedar Lake, and it was not post-race, but it was pre-race. The World of Outlaw Sprint Cars used to run on a Monday down at Cedar Lake, and they'd run the Wissota Super Stocks with them. And I was starting P2. I was outside row number 1 in the feature. Don't remember. I think I was next to Scrappy Nippolt. I think he was on the pole. I believe I won that one, not by much, but it was a good race. And they misted it, right? They misted the track, and I'm up on the top, kind of packing it, feeling it in. I'm in turn 3, and I gas on it because I'm going to see if there's some grip there. No grip. I end up spinning out in front of like the whole field on the parade lap in front of a packed house at the Cedar Lake Speedway. Bert, that was a little embarrassing. But yeah, Kyle Larson is professional that should not be doing those things. So there was a little conspiracy. Oh, he did it to get out of the droop rule. Nah, I don't think that's the case, but there was some conspiracy theorists out there saying that. Night number 3 started out with a shining moment, another donkey award. I got to be honest with you. That's an embarrassing moment. Did you happen to catch what happened in time trials on night 3?
No, I didn't watch any of the time trials.
Jimmy, I think it was pretty sure it was either night 3 there or night 1 at Bubba, but I think it was night 3 at Golden Isles. Jimmy Owens pulls on the track for time trials. His left front tire fell off. I don't get it. This seems like it's happening every other week with somebody. I don't understand how you can. I mean, this is. Did he come in and just be like, dude, you're fired? Like just walk home? Like seriously? I mean, it's partially on the driver. You kind of got to. I mean, you think you'd walk around and just feel the tires before you let it down. Hey, like, are they on? Like, what are you doing here? I don't get it. And his speed weeks were so bad. I mean, we're gonna talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but he went home. He went home. He's not. He may come back on Friday, but he went home. He's like, I fun meter pegged home. Yeah, that kind of ruined his. I mean, at that point, you might as well just not even race because you're gonna start in the back. You're probably gonna destroy shit. It's not a good deal. I don't remember if that was night 3 there or night 1 at Bubba, but either way, I mean, it don't matter. It was just dumb. But good racing down there at Brunswick. The weather held out good. Great crowd. Super happy that a few years back they made the decision to shorten that track up and make it a racetrack. I thought that was good. But I have a question for you. Kyle Bronson took over as the proprietor of that place last year, and starting last year, he was a non-factor behind the wheel. Is the racetrack a distraction to Kyle Bronson?
Well, I mean, I don't know how much time he spends doing things regarding the racetrack, but I mean, obviously it can be a distraction. I mean, anytime you own a business, if you have to devote a lot of time to it, it can be a distraction in other activities that you do.
Right. I mean, I know I quit racing after being on the board at Hibbing for a couple of there's multiple reasons tied in, but that was one. My fun meter in racing was flat out like at 0. I was like, I'm done. I didn't go to the races for like 2 years, like once or something in 2 years. I was burnt out. So yeah, you're right. I don't know how much of an active role he has, but the results would beg the question that something ain't right there because Kyle Bronson I mean, he's not T-Mac, right? He's not JD, but he's not terrible, right? He's not as bad as his results are. So maybe they can figure it out. So then they headed over to Bubba. Ocala.
Well, first, hey, before we go to Bubba, we got to talk about the finish in night 3, because RTJ was he was a sitting duck there. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of drivers, after big races, and whenever I interview a driver who got passed late in the race, they always say the same thing. When you're leading a race, you're a sitting duck because you can't change lines. You can't search for something because if you change your lines, then you're afraid you're going to get passed. So as long as you're not getting passed, you're going to continue to go in the same line that you're racing.
And I think he made the right move because Bert, he was 3, maybe 4 car lengths ahead of Overton in the middle of the back straightaway. And when I looked at the back straightaway, it kind of reminded me of one of the World of Outlaw sprint car deals with that closing speed that we talk about. I'm like, there's no way. It's over. You just got to go down, hit his marks. And Overton just nipped him. I don't know what the distance was, but I mean, it was a nose at the line. And he brought it into 3 like hard. I mean, he's like, I'm gonna jump the cushion and pound the wall, knock the wall down, or something's gonna stick and I'm gonna sneak by RTJ to win it at the line. And it was dramatic fashion. So he had to get up on the wheel to get that one.
And watching that all go down, I was telling myself, I think RTJ was doing the right thing because I didn't think there was enough up top to make that pass. It was almost like the track, was locking down at the bottom and you can't get out of that groove because if you get out of that groove, then they're going to duck underneath you. So you just have to, even to try to get past the lap car, you can't go on the outside.
Right.
But I mean, Overton made it work.
He did. That's why 2 years ago, he was on the verge of eclipsing 1 million and he was the #1 driver in America. That's why. It's Brandon Overton. Brandon Overton doing Brandon Overton things. But with that said, I'm telling you, RTJ is having a pretty good speed weeks down there. Yep. This could be the year that he kind of jumps up and starts grabbing a bunch more wins. keep an eye on that old mod guy right there in the 20 RT. So Bubba Raceway Park, Ocala. Have you ever looked at this track from an overhead view, Bert?
I have not.
Very strange track. Big egg. It's wide sweeping 1 and 2, and it comes down into a point, kind of like an egg, right? So it's really narrow in 3 and 4, flat. I like water on the racetrack, right? I like to where it's elbows up, but they tend to maybe go a little bit overboard. I think I don't remember who it was, Overton or JD, maybe one of them said, man, it was ready for hot laps when the feature got done, right? So they were not overly excited with the track. And night number 1, 20 RT, Ricky, he got her done. Max Blair second, Ashton Winger, he had a good weekend there after running a crate. Got a third, Huddy got 4th, and Overton 5th. Night 2, Davenport parked in Victory Lane. Talk a little bit more about that one in a second. Ashton Winger got 2nd, one night better. Dennis Erb Jr., who not a good night the night before. We'll talk about that in a second. And Turbo got 4th. That might be his best run that he's had all year. So he kind of at least looked a little bit more in it. And Devin Moran, he got 5th, but he probably should. I mean, if it was a judgment call deal, he's going to the back because he flat out dumped RTJ, not on purpose.
And he took the blame. I don't know if you watched his interview after the race. He took the blame for it, and I mean, obviously he didn't give up his 5th place finish, but he took the blame for it.
Well, he pulled up right when it happened, and they're hollering over the thing 20 RT to the back. He stopped, and they're going on the front straightaway, and you could see him. He pulled up next to RTJ because you could tell he wanted to be like, it's my deal. Ricky's like, I ain't having it. Like, swerved at him a little bit. He's like, I ain't ready. We might talk later, not right now, right? And but night number 1, there was an incident. Dennis Erb Jr., Hudson O'Neill, Tyler Bruning, and it ended up with Dennis Erb Jr.'s car. Well, I think was on top of T-Mac's car at the end of that deal, and Bruning was side by side there with Dennis Erb Jr. at the time, and there ended up being a little bit of contact with Huddy that got him turned around. Everybody piled up. Super narrow racetrack, all stacked on top of each other. What was your take on that wreck?
I mean, just based on everything, it was just a racing deal. I mean, drivers battling for the same real estate, and they started getting turned, and it was at near a restart, so all the cars were bunched up, so just a lot of them got collected in it.
They did, and ultimately Huddy got into him, but I think Bruning got a little sideways, and it might have been a left front, right front. They might have tucked him in Dennis Erb Jr. It looked to me like Huddy kind of had nowhere to go. I don't think they really destroyed much in that deal, but it was like a half hour they had to stack cars there. And then so that race there too, Devin Moran, right? A little more Devin Moran RTJ stuff, but Moran threw a slider on RTJ clean. And RTJ is like, I wasn't going to drive that hard because it was definitely narrow cowboy up. And then all of a sudden he pulled up lame in turn 1 and 2. And I'm like, drove around, tires looked up, and come to find out what I think happened there is Dan, who's in our pick'ems, my buddy Dan, he actually picked Moran, and I picked RTJ to win. And I think word come out that he didn't, I don't know what he's got against Dan, but he's like, Dan ain't getting no points tonight. So I'm just going to pull over. Ryan can have the points. And well, it sounds like the right front tire actually started going down later, but it's either that or maybe, he was texting Dan, hey, I'm going to get you some points here. Bam, I drove off the track. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm going to blame Dan for that one, to be honest with you. That's Dan's fault. Another one.
Well, and then, I mean, speaking of flat tires, and RTJ got a flat tire at the end of the race. Luckily, it was the left front, and as the announcer said, you really don't need the left front for much.
Right, not there. So yeah,
he was able to continue and win the race.
Sounds like he went about 7 laps, didn't he? With the flat,
I would say probably, about that much.
Yeah. Well, another thing that happened on night number 1 is in time trials, Jonathan Davenport light at the scales. Okay. Now they talked to him and they said, we forgot to put fuel in. That's our bad. Like they own it. Okay. Well, did they or did they not? If they forgot, they said they forgot to put fuel in. They did say that. They told the flow crew that. Now, night number 2, and I might be missing somebody here, but Tanner English, Shane Planton, and Tyler Bruning, I believe, were all light in time trials. Garrett Alberson was light after his heat.
Mm-hmm.
Bert, I don't think I've seen that many people be light at the same track in like a 2-day period. That's
well, and I don't know if you noticed after the feature on night 2, they drove through the scale building, but none of the cars stopped long enough to scale.
Right.
So I don't know if they were having issues with the scales or what.
So it sounds like what happened is they talked to Rick Schwally, right? He's the Lucas Oil Series director. And they said normally, right, if there's 3, 4, 5 people light, normally we're like, it's got to be the scales, just not scale. But then they're like, well, we DQ'd JD the night before, so now we kind of have to, right? And I think you're right. I don't think they scaled after the feature. And it sounds like they went and they're actually, because they have pretty much the week off, and they're going to buy a brand new set of scales, and they will have new scales at Alltech. I think Alltech has their own, but I think it's either East Bay or one of them. They got to have their own scales. Let's just say that Lucas Oil went to buy a new set because I think they figured out there might have been an issue there. And it's one of those deals. If you can't like DQ these drivers, if you can't not DQ these drivers if you did DQ that. So it's kind of a crappy deal for everybody there if that ended up being the case, but I guess it is what it is. So pretty good racing. Bubba, interesting though, Bert. It's just weird shaped, hammered down. I think everybody's kind of going, man, am I glad that place is only 2 nights, and I'm glad that we are done, and I'm glad that we get a couple days off to like regroup.
Well, and I mean the track management, they did make changes for the second night because the track was much drier than it was the first night.
Still not real racy. Well,
right.
Kind of weird, right? Because Davenport picked up a phantom push, and that's what happens on them tracks that are like super flat. In the middle of 3 and 4, he picked up a nasty push. Bam! There goes Dennis Erb Jr. by for the lead. I'm like, it's over. Like, it's over. It's on the bottom. Nobody's in. Dennis Erb Jr. on the bottom with the lead. Over. And then next thing you know, he couldn't get his car to turn for like 4 laps in a row. In fact, he was so bad through 3 and 4 that JD in lap traffic with a little pick drove back around him on the outside, and Dennis Erb Jr. never regrouped. It was weird. I thought as good as he was, and then it was like a light switch went off, and Dennis Erb Jr. was junk. That was the best chance so far this year for Rocket to park at Victory Lane, and they didn't get her done. So, Bert, let's jump over to our weekly pick'ems here. Bad Brad with the lead at 16. You got Mike, Kurt, and Kent, all of them at 15. I'm at 14. I'm in it. I'm there. Close. Not close enough, right? Jeff's at 11. Dan's at 8. Reigning champ giving everybody a head start. He's at 6.
Just saving my equipment.
Saving your equipment. And not so hot Carl is at 5. Okay, so it's not hot Carl. This is not so hot Carl. He's at 5, so gonna have to get her together there, buddy. Kind of pick up the pace, Carl. Come on, keep up with us here. All right, so this week we're gonna pick Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Action at Alltech Friday and Saturday. We're gonna pick those races, and Jeff decided that we are gonna pick Monday's race at East Bay as well for the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Models. Mainly because that way people don't have to get their picks in right away on Monday. They kind of got all day to get that. So we got 3 races here this week. Let's take a little look ahead, right? We got Alltech, we got East Bay, we got 3 races. Probably the biggest track. I mean, I don't know if Alltech's bigger than Volusia, but it's close. They're both big tracks. and then you're going to a little 3/8 mile at East Bay. What should we be looking forward to? What are you looking forward to at these two races?
Well, I'll be looking for Jonathan Davenport to do well at Alltech. He passed the 2 million mark last year at Alltech, so I'm expecting him to do well there.
He's not going.
Huh?
He's not going to Alltech.
He's not?
I'm kidding. Settle down. I'm messing
It's
with
like
you.
he's following the Lucas series. He's got to be going.
You're like, I picked him. I tell you, it's going to be good. You know who's actually kind of sneaky good there? Tyler Bruning actually is pretty fast there. Could Tyler Bruning park in Victory Lane? Could he get his first win with the Lucas series at Alltech? What do you think?
Possible.
That's Bert's like, hell,
well,
that ain't gonna happen.
I didn't pick him, so I got to say no.
Right. So JD, you kind of got it right by using letters, but it's actually RTJ. That's gonna get her done there. East Bay. So they got this year and next year as of right now that's it, right? So you got, if you're not going to East Bay, Dan is going down there. So have fun down there, buddy. He's going to East Bay, right? We need to go next year because that sounds like it's going to be the last year. Do you think that will be it, or do you think that there's any way, shape, or form that maybe they can get another couple years out of that place?
I mean, it's always possible depending on what the owner wants to do, but I think it's probably getting one of these times it's going to be the end, and there's not going to be any added years.
Well, yeah, and they're not adding any yet. They said we got this year, next year's the scheduled last one. So yeah, I have a feeling you're going to see record crowds down at East Bay. I think it's going to be packed because, I mean, they know it's coming to an end. There's a lot of history there. And, I even have a little sweet spot in my heart for that place. Park the old girl in Victory Lane in the modified down there. So East Bay, I'm always looking forward to that. It's changed though. The last couple of years, they flattened it out. Mods are there now, so we'll see what happens. But let's jump into the last lap, Bert. Brought to you by Zuli's Race Engines. WISSOTA racing season right around the corner, right? And what do we see during the WISSOTA racing season? Zuli Race Engine cars in Victory Lane on Facebook every single week. Championships, track championships, series championships, national championships, feature wins, special events, you name it. One thing in common, it's what's under the hood, right? Gotta have a good mill. Zuli's Race Engines, dependability, power. Get a hold of Frank. He'll take good care of you. So, Bert, let's start with this. You sent me a message here a couple days ago. There was a press release out from Ashton Torgerson's Racing. He's the driver at the Chili Bowl that got ejected from his car miraculously, came away mostly unscathed, and is alive to talk about it. What did you see in that report?
Well, I don't have it in front of me, but basically they're not positive as to what happened. But their thinking is that, and maybe you can explain this better, there's Velcro on is it on the latch? And
yeah, it holds the latch down. It's just like an extra safety thing that you Velcro it so the latch can't pop up.
And they figure that the Velcro wasn't on properly, and when he started flipping, something caught the latch and opened the latch.
Yeah, and then they actually showed several pictures there of him inside the car, and on his race suit, kind of up on his arm for the arm restraints would latch, there's metal rings. Right. And it actually showed the metal rings, like if he was moving around or bouncing around, it showed how easily that metal ring could actually unhook your seatbelts. So what they recommended out there, racers, is if you're not using arm restraints and you've got those rings on your arms, tape them up. So that way nothing can pop loose. Tape them up because you don't need them. If you're not going to tape them up, just cut them, right? Grab a pair of tins or snips or whatever, cut them off there if you don't need it for if you don't use arm restraints. But very lucky, and wasn't, basically what he was saying is it was, in layman's terms, operator error. It wasn't like faulty seat belts or anything like that. So they put that press release out. Also, he was down at Casa Grande, and one of the nights down there, they actually handed him the flag. He actually got to throw the green flag to start the event. So kind of a cool deal. So I don't know how that all ties in, but he was down in Arizona. So let's jump over to a little who's hot and who's not. Let's bring it back. So who's hot, Bert? Who do you got?
Okay, before we get into the who's hot, this just popped into my mind as I was watching the races last night. They used a lot of after the race was over, they used a lot of footage of the drone flying above the cars, and I noticed those late models, the bodies on those things are twisting now. I mean, they're intentionally being built like that, so they're twisted. And so next time they, for our listeners and viewers, next time you're watching a race and they do that the drone shot, take a notice of the bodies and see how they're being built where they're twisted. And that's all aerodynamic stuff that I'm sure that they've learned in wind tunnels.
Yeah, I guarantee it. And that's where you want to fix that problem. If you're a track promoter, track prep guy listening to this right now, you want to fix the aero problem, water the racetrack. That's the biggest fix right there. I'm not saying mud it up like Ocala, but get some moisture on the racetrack, get a little berm to bank off of it. And that aero stuff, not quite as important as it is on a smooth, dry track. So back to who's hot.
All right. I'm going to start off with, I'm sure you're going to use one driver, so I won't say him first. So I'll say Overton, Brendan Overton.
Yeah, Brandon Overton. He got a first, third, and a first over at Golden Isles, a fifth. And I mean, we can't really count Bubba because that place kind of a shithole, right? I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, some of the best out there. I mean, you can't pass anybody there, so it's not even really a racetrack. I mean, it's unfortunate. It probably could be good. They'd have to make a few changes, but it just does not seem to race good. But Overton off to a fast start. And anyone else that you want to add, or is that your guy right there?
Well, he's number one on my list. I have another one. I don't. You want to say one?
Yeah,
RTJ.
Yeah, I think RTJ Bert is probably going to leave with the point lead. Leave Speed Weeks. Yeah, literally he ain't been out of the top 5 except for Devin Moran dumping him.
Wow, he would have the point lead right now if it wasn't for Devin Moran.
Right. Yeah, and his worst finish was a 5th. He had 5 straight top 3s. Except bookended there. So yeah. Wow.
Bless you.
Thank you. So my other hot Bert is, I'm just going to go Longhorn Nation, right? Still undefeated. 13 for 13 in late model action, counting Votto and then counting everything at Speed Weeks and Volusia and you name it. It's unbelievable. I mean, they're flat out dominating open late model racing. Who's not?
Well, we mentioned him earlier in the show, but the old show, Jimmy Owens, we talked about this last week already. They put that team together in a really short amount of time and put the equipment together in a really short amount of time. So hopefully it's just a matter of they're just behind a little bit and, they'll be able to regroup and he'll be able to get his mojo back.
Yeah, Jimmy Owens is Jimmy Owens. I'm sure he'll figure it out, but man, 0 top 10s, and he had 2 nights where he didn't even make the feature. And there's a lot of good guys that didn't make the feature. It is what it is, but boy, you don't expect.
Well, and he struggled last year at Speed Weeks too. It kind of seems to be a theme a little bit.
He has not been all that great since Cody Mallory left. He just hasn't, So I'm gonna go with the wild child, Scott Ward. So Scott Ward went down to the Wild West shootout, or not the Wild West. I'm gonna call it that, but it's not. It's the early thaw. He went down to Casa Grande down there. 0 top 5s. I did not expect that. I looked at the cars, and there's some good racers down there. But if you count wins, career wins behind the wheel, and you take what Scott Ward has done in his career and compare it to several of the drivers that were consistently running top 5, it ain't close. In fact, I would say Scott Ward probably has more wins than several of the drivers even combined. And he couldn't even find the tech shed. I mean, absolutely atrocious. I don't know what his deal is. What's wrong with that car? Maybe it's a shock program. I don't know what it is, but if that's what his 2023 season is, maybe he needs to focus on Morgan's car. I'm not really sure, because he was struggle bus bad down there. Now, XR Super Series posted some news. Bert, did you happen to see the news?
Yeah, they did they announced their final race of the season is going to be at Alltech, and it's going to be, I can't remember, in October, isn't it?
It's in October, so no Vegas.
No Vegas, and last year their final race of the season went up against the Dome race, so they're not going to. Well, and actually, and this was kind of pointed out today on Facebook, the XR Series is not competing against any national touring series race, and same thing with the Flow Night in America.
That's huge. I mean, let's face it, all of us, whether you're a racer, promoter, we all got egos. It just is what it is. And his ego for a little bit was like, I'm running against him, don't care, gonna do my deal. And I'm glad to see that, however it all came into fruition, that's not going to be the case for 2023. So much better for everybody, and I think it's going to be good, because you're going to see some of those drivers that announced. Well, I mean, his hand might have been forced a little bit too, because some of them drivers said, "Hey, I'm running World of Outlaws, I'm running Lucas, I'm doing all that." Like, we're running those. Well, pretty soon you're like, am I going to have any cars left? So I think this is just better for everybody, and glad to see they did that. Couple northern events they have. They're going to be up in Gondik Speedway in Superior, August 7th. Get your tickets now, and that's $20,000 to win. And it looks like the next night, Bert, and I don't know if this is for sure or not, because I've seen a couple different things, but I seen something. They might be going maybe to the Red Cedar Speedway.
Well, it was announced. I saw it announced today. Well, Red Cedar Speedway shared a Facebook post. XR has another series. It's like the Everyman series or something like that. And Red Cedar Speedway is the only Wisconsin track that is on that. It's not a points deal. There's no season ending points fund. Basically, I think it's just races at select tracks. But yeah, I mean, I believe it's August 8th. They're scheduled to be at Red Cedar Speedway for $10,000 to win.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So keep an eye on XR, because they got some pretty cool stuff happening there.
And the first thing I thought of was that's really close to when they normally run the Dwayne Mader Memorial Race. So I wonder how that all fits in.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's early yet. We'll figure out some more of the schedule stuff and shows to come. It's Mod Week right now, right, at East Bay, and really the only northern mod at East Bay, Kevin Buzzy Adams, the human highlight reel. He's won a lot of races down there. He's won the championship down there multiple times during Speed Week. So I guess our lone wolf, our only hope, is for the 40 ride to park at Victory Lane. So good luck to Buzzy down at East Bay. And
now, do the mods race at Volusia at all then later, or?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So
and Volusia gets all the big guns. All, like, they don't get. I mean, not that the guys at East Bay aren't good, but it seems like a lot of your NASCAR contingent, right? Your Strammies, your Nick Hoffman, that contingent of people, they go to Volusia, but they don't typically go to East Bay.
Okay, so that must be where Mike Mullen is going to race at Volusia.
Yeah,
and then
Benji Lacrosse too.
And Benji is supposed to be going down to Florida to race a car owned by Tim Zarneski. It's actually a car that Zarneski's son Cole is going to race once the high school wrestling season's over, I guess.
Okay.
Because Cole is a senior in high school right now.
Okay. So a little NASCAR action this weekend. Clash at the Coliseum, Take Two. That's going to be this coming Sunday. Thought it was a pretty entertaining event last year. I'll probably tune into that one. But they did make another announcement. NASCAR did. I don't know how they necessarily worded it, but essentially, no more Ross Chastain moves in NASCAR. They're going to take and use their judgment to say basically if they're going to allow it or disallow it or DQ you based on it's going to be a judgment call for NASCAR. Your thoughts?
I disagree with it. It seems like when somebody figures, when somebody does something that, that brings excitement to the series, then they go and outlaw it.
Right.
I mean, I didn't actually read the press release. I don't know if there was a press release, but I mean, I'm sure they probably worded it somewhat where we have safety in the utmost in our mind, blah, blah, blah. Well, if that's the case, I want to see you outlaw dumping a driver for victory.
Right. For sure. And I would say this, if they're the one thing that's gave NASCAR relevance in the last 20 years, I mean, come on, I don't know that. I mean, I get it. We're trying to err on the side of safety and caution, but like you said, I mean, you can't preach safety and then let somebody just flat out dump somebody for the lead. I mean, so it'll be interesting to see how that all transpires in 2023. But let's get to our bold predictions, or maybe not so bold predictions, or whatever we want to call them. But off the board, so Bert, nothing incorrect off the board. So you kind of took some low-lying fruit there, probably smarter than you're leaving. So you had a couple correct. You had 0 wins for Rocket through Bubba. Dennis Erb Jr., come on, man. You literally had it won and you gave it away and you gave Bert a point. Come on. That sucks. He was close. 0 wins for B-Shep through Bubba, which obviously, unless he switched cars. B-Shep's in a Longhorn. My bad. So 0 wins for B-Shep through Bubba as well, which he finally got a top 5 in there, but he doesn't look close. What's your thoughts there?
Well, it seems like he's definitely going through a learning curve. And, we've talked about this several times on the show. He's running a different shock package than the rest of the Longhorns. So, how much of an impact is that?
Right. I think he did mention after his 4th that Rumley gave him a little bit of advice and pointed him in the right direction. So do you think that there's a chance that B-Shep's going to just bite the bullet and be like, I got to get on the program here because I'm sick of getting second?
If he continues to struggle, yeah, there probably will be a point where, he's got to get on the same package that, because he can't get any advice from the Longhorn headquarters because they're not running the same stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a mistake on his part. We'll see how East Bay, if there's a place that he can do it, it's East Bay. He's good there. So we'll see what happens. So I had a rough week. I had a rough go of it here. I said Shane Sobraski was going to win at least 2 A mains down in Arizona. And I'm astonished that he didn't. I really am. He ran well. He had a little bit of bad luck. He ran well, but he only won 1. So no points for me. I put Don Shaw will win more features than Scott Ward. I did not know that Don Shaw was going to let everybody else drive his cars. He was unbelievably bolted. He came from deep to the podium the nights that he was in the car. But it would have, could have, should have. I think if he would have raced all 6 nights, he probably would have parked it in victory lane. Or maybe I should have just worded it, he will run better than Scott Ward, because he certainly did. I said Ryan Satter, street stock ace from Minnesota, was going to win IMCA stock car A main down there. 3 of his last 3 were on the podium. 0 of them were wins. I said the Longhorn Bilstein combination would be undefeated through Bubba. Tony Barr, QQ, pointed out Yeah, you were wrong on that one. Yes, I was, Tony. Yes, I was. I should have just said Longhorn's going to be undefeated through Bubba. I would have been right. But the Longhorn Bills team did not because Overton's on Penske's. So the standings right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So the standings right now, they're going to change because we're going to take the last 4 weeks from last year because we started it postseason. We're going to roll them in. You're still going to have the lead. But based on just this last few weeks here, you have 5 correct, 4 incorrect, and 3 still on the board. I have 1 correct. 1.
And was that the low-hanging fruit rollovers at?
It wasn't even low-hanging fruit. That shit was on the ground. I just went ahead, picked that up, and put it in the bucket. There's no low-lying fruit there at all. Yeah, so that was kind of a gimme. And I got 8 incorrect. And 3 still on the board. So you are whooping my ass. So let's see if I can get back in this here.
My picks are a little bolder this week than last week.
All right. Mine are not. I need to do the Kirk Cousins check down to get on the board here. So go ahead. We're gonna pick 3. The rules for everybody is we make 3 bold predictions, and sometimes not so bold, right? But we make 3 predictions. It got to be something that it either absolutely did happen or absolutely did not happen. Not like an opinion or we thought this. It's like it did or did not happen, and that's how we quantify it. And as you can see, we call ourselves out when we're wrong, and I've been wrong a lot. So what do you got for your first one?
All right, I'm gonna make one of the guys in our picking group very upset with this, but Superman will double up at Alltech and win both features there.
That is bold. That's a twofer. Okay. I have a Rocket chassis will win at least one of the features at East Bay.
I will say Buzzy gets a feature win down in Florida.
That's my next one. Are you copying me?
Oh.
All right. So you said Buzzy. Okay. So I'm going to go this way then. I'll go this way. Buzzy's going to win the finale at East Bay. We'll go that way.
All right. And my third one is Benji Lacrosse will get a top 5 in A feature down in Florida.
A feature? Does B features count or just A?
No,
feature?
it's A feature.
Okay. So you'll get a top 5 down there. And I put RTJ is going to be the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series point leader at the conclusion of Speed Weeks. That's my prediction right there. So with that said, Bert, episode 162 in the books. Not a lot going on here the next couple nights. I mean, you got mods, right? Swan Flow Racing. You can jump over there and you can watch the UMP. I don't think they're UMP sanctioned, but that style modified down there at East Bay and cheer on the 40 of Buzzy Adams. And other than that, we're just kind of hanging tight, wait until some racing action this weekend. So thank all of our sponsors again. And thank you for coming on. Always enjoy talking racing with you. And fans, hope you enjoy this show. That is the Bert Lehman. I am Ryan Aho. Thanks for tuning in to the One to Go Show.